Before I say anything about Age of Calamity, I want to make it very clear that I love the Warriors games. I understand that many may find them to be repetitive and mindless at times, but it's really the kind of experience that helps me to unwind. Going into Age of Calamity, I knew that Koei Tecmo was going to do their magic and make this game feel unique, just like the many other Warriors games, and it works so beautifully. If you've played Breath of the Wild and you're a fan of the lore, the characters, and the setting of Hyrule, then you'll instantly fall in love with this game. The best part of the entire package is the story, as we get a much better look at Zelda's side of the story, and it fleshes her out to be a much more deep character than almost any other Zelda game does. And believe me, I know the idea of time travel playing a part in the story is a turn off for some people, and it even alters the timeline a bit in ways that I don't even want to debate here in this video, but the story that they did set up from beginning to end really focused so much on Zelda and her journey to unlocking her abilities and preparing for this massive war that the entire game is based around. And again, without giving too much of a spoiler, I will make it clear that if you really want that prequel experience, this game might feel a little bit more lacking. The game does give you a good look of Hyrule 100 years in the past, but also focuses heavily on Zelda and unfortunately not as much on the other champions. The game does try to use a time travel in order to give the champions a bit more boost in their character development, but it's just never on the level of what Zelda has. Moving on, however, I want to talk a bit about the map of Hyrule. At first, I really thought it would be annoying, but there's always the option of using the menus to get to what you want if you don't want to search throughout the entire map to get to the area that you want to go to. But what I do love about the entire map feature is that as you progress through the campaign, you see firsthand what areas are getting filled in more and more, and by the end of it, it looks like a very thriving map of Hyrule. And there's even some nice features built into the map that help you track down certain materials so you can upgrade characters, unlock shops, and sometimes even get secrets. And again, I won't spoil too much, but there are a few unlockable characters that are a bit of a surprise. There's currently 2 characters I'm still working to unlock after playing the game for over 30 hours and completing the campaign. Koei Tecmo does a really good job of making these games into a representation of the entire series that it's based on. And in this game in particular, they do a very good job of making the Sheikah runes that much more useful when it comes to combat. It feels like every single character outside of their own unique moveset also has unique Sheikah runes that they can use in different ways. Some characters don't use it as well as others, like if you want to use the bomb in order to stagger an enemy, some characters are better at using the bombs than others, and the same thing can be applied to the other things like stasis and magnesis. Personally, I tried to do my best to play as a lot of the different characters to get a good feel for them, and I did play as all the ones I have unlocked so far, but even to this point, my favorite character is absolutely Impa. Running around as Impa with your shadow clones is just a fun experience. I also enjoyed playing as characters like Mipha and one other character that I won't exactly spoil in this video, but even still, these characters feel very unique from one another, and it doesn't feel like any one character just plays the same way as another character does. Now, going into each character, you do have to do certain things in order to unlock bonus hearts and bonus combos and also bonus special gauges for each character, and that can be a bit grindy because you're going to have to go back to older levels in order to get specific pieces to unlock those abilities for each character. But hey, if you're just like me and you want to play this game just chilling with some Netflix in the background and just run through a couple levels real fast to collect some ingredients, that is the best way to play this game. I will admit that the variety of characters that we have to play with isn't as much as I expected it to be, but I did see a few surprises in there, things I didn't really expect to see at all. And even recently, we've seen some data mines for potential characters that were either dropped halfway through or potential DLC characters, which would be a very interesting thing to see happen in the future. Because with them adding in time travel as this actual thing for the entire plot, who knows what type of shenanigans they could get into with the entire lore of Zelda and add in different things. Because it would be really interesting to see things like Majora's Mask make an appearance in this game. There's also one other mechanic that's used in battle that I was very much blown away by. There are whiz robes that roam around, and there's electric, fire, and ice, and you can use their magic staffs in order to stagger opponents a lot more quickly. Not only does it give you the opportunity to take down your foes a lot faster than you would normally, but it also really opens up the possibilities. It really helps when you're fighting against a Hinox or a Lionel, so you can take it down very quickly and stagger it without wasting a whole lot of time. One part of the game that I thought I would really enjoy much more than I actually did was the battles inside of the Divine Beasts. These sections are kind of monotonous and kind of boring. Now don't get me wrong, it's a nice break away from the original gameplay, but the problem is that a lot of these objectives just don't really feel that satisfying. Like for example, if you want to fly around in Rivali's Divine Beast, you will find yourself taking out enemy camps. And flying around trying to destroy each and every enemy camp is one of the most boring things I have done in this entire game. I flew around that one little map at least 5 times in order to get this done, and it was just so time consuming and it was not fun. Now of course I would rather this be a part of the game than not be a part of the game. It definitely is a nice break away from the original gameplay like I just said, but even still I have to say that this is just one of the less interesting parts of the entire game as a whole. And you know what, let's segue into the amount of time I put into the game so far and compare it a little bit to the original Hyrule Warriors. The thing is, this game really does shine in so many ways, and I've really been trying to hold off on making comparisons to the original game, but I think I've said enough about the positive parts of Age of Calamity. If I were to compare Age of Calamity to the original Hyrule Warriors, and the biggest difference is the amount of content within each game. Now of course Age of Calamity takes a huge win when it comes to the story. That alone could be the biggest reason to pick up this game, and I wouldn't blame anyone for that. However, after the 30 hours I've put in, I'm basically looking at a bunch of grinding and challenge missions to unlock the last few characters before I'm basically finished. And yes, while that could take me another 30 hours to do, it just ain't a comparison to the hundreds of hours of content within the original Hyrule Warriors. It's a bit of a disappointment to see that this game is lacking in some areas when you compare it, but it's also to be expected. If this game covered all of the Zelda lore, then of course it would be filled to the brim with content like the original game is. But for them to focus on the Breath of the Wild timeline and put all their efforts into making such an authentic prequel is nothing short of fantastic. One thing I really do wish they added into this game, and hopefully they will with any updates or any DLC in the future, I wanted to see more costumes, and I also wanted to see more weapon variety for each character. One thing that was so good about Hyrule Warriors, the original game at least, was that Link had all these different weapons, so playing as Link didn't really feel like you were playing as just one character. It felt like you were playing as at least 6 characters. And yeah, Link still has a wide variety of weapons to use, anything from boomerangs to giant hammers. And the thing is, it didn't really feel like they played very differently from one another. There are special abilities for each weapon class of course, but it didn't feel like I was playing as a different character for each weapon I was using. Whereas in Hyrule Warriors, playing as Link, you could play with a spinner, you could play with a horse, you could play with a master sword, you could play with all of these different items that felt very much unique from one another without having a slight little difference. It was a huge difference. One thing I do enjoy about this game in comparison to the original is the level up system and how easy it is to level up your characters in comparison. The amount of rupees that you had to use in the original game was astronomical, and you had to play for a very long time in order to get all those rupees. But now it doesn't feel like you need as many rupees in order to level up your characters. Now obviously if you want to level up all of your characters equally, it's going to take a lot to level them up like that, but if you have one character, maybe like even 4 characters that you like to play as, you can level those up without any problem. I found myself always leveling up my 4 main characters and getting them up to speed for the next battle ahead. And now for the final negative point I have about this game, I have to admit it's a little hit or miss in my experience. Most of the gameplay you've seen in this video is from the first 5 or so hours of the game, and after I recorded those first 5 hours, I went completely into handheld mode with my game. The frame rate when I played on my TV was really unstable, and for some reason would seem to be more stable whenever I ran around without attacking anyone. And in handheld mode, I did notice the frame drops a little bit at first, but either the issue disappeared for me entirely or I just got used to it. Now regardless of whether or not the game just evened itself out over time or I just got used to it, the obvious thing here is that we need a Nintendo Switch Pro. Because a game like this, a big game that's supposed to be a holiday seller, having these frame rate issues is definitely a problem, and going forward I can see a lot of these games having more issues, but I digress. And not only was was the frame rate an issue, but I noticed quite a lot of texture pop-in as well. For a Warriors game, I'm more used to characters popping in and out, but having the same issue for very close ground textures and trees is a bit concerning. So after all this, the question I have now is, who is this game for? And the answer to that is pretty simple, I think. If you are a person who played Breath of the Wild and you loved that game to death, then please do not sleep on Age of Calamity. All the technical issues aside, this game is really good and does the series so much justice in so many ways. And hey, maybe you don't want to get this game for the full $60 price, but I will say it's worth picking up at the very least before Breath of the Wild 2 releases. It is a good refresher as to why I loved Breath of the Wild in the first place. And on top of that, it gets me really excited for the sequel to Breath of the Wild that's hopefully coming out pretty soon. Hopefully. But that is about it for this little impression/review video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you've played the game, let me know what you think about it. If you haven't played the game, are you interested in getting it after this review? Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter or subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one. And that is it for today, so I'll see you guys in the next one.